All right, it's 5:30, gonna call the meeting to order. We had Travis. Yeah, we don't. Okay, we do have Brad. Any agenda adjustments to be considered?
Not for me.
No. No. Okay, we'll go to, public comment. We got two people in the public. Anything?
No.
We've been putting that ahead of the agenda just to kind of get an idea of what to talk about later.
I'm not here for public.
Okay. No one else has joined us.
No,
Okay.
no.
Next, motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
December 20th meeting. Motion moved and seconded.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
Brad seconded.
Oh, Brad,
I'll
okay. Gotcha, Brad, gotcha. Motion been made, seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes for December 20th, say aye.
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 Next is, moving on to check register approval.
Make a motion to approve check registers.
I'll second it.
Were there any questions or anything?
And seconded, any discussion?
Brad, did you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Can't keep Brad up there.
Yeah, it's the big black.
Yeah.
He's not showing his face. He's just doing audio tonight.
Oh, okay.
No, you can't see me. I can see you.
He's poolside,
Okay.
Just turn the
Okay.
camera on if he wants to see you.
poolside
I thought-
somewhere.
I thought my camera was on.
All
You're
right.
fine. I don't set that up.
Motion's been made, and seconded. All in favor of approving, oh, I'm sorry, all approving the check register, say aye.
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 Ayes have it.
Gary is planning on being here right at 5:45, so if you want, it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, we could jump to 6C, just do the management report.
That's fine.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, you wanna do management report stuff?
Sure.
No, not using it, so maybe, we might just have this downloaded, so.
No, that's right.
They didn't get this verbal today.
Yeah. I guess the biggest thing was the flood part two last year, which, we came through it all right. We shut the well off, so we didn't even have to question, go through that performance again. And we had some pretty serious scouring up at near well two, right beside Tinny Bridge, which we've got to get with the state and figure out how we're gonna stop that, because it's gouging into our aquifer every time it floods. Where that old Tinny Bridge abutment used to be, it used to direct it and launch it towards Route 15, and the state buttressed that riverbank. Then it directed it back to us, we had to do that, so it's gonna be either we have to try to protect that area, or we're just gonna.
So they redirected it, right?
No,
they did.
They did by taking that abutment out, so we've got to work with them.
I don't think they intended to, but that was the outcome.
Well, it doesn't matter what the intent was.
Right, no, that's right.
Yeah, so it's all washed out that,
Yeah.
Kenny Grimes had
About
done.
half, a third to half of what Grimes put in this summer is gone again, so. Yeah, that's gonna be trouble.
I guess they didn't do a good enough study with it. Before they did.
Yeah. And, when they put the bridge over the bypass near the wastewater treatment plant, that directed the flows enough, so it silted in our, treatment plant outfall, covered it right over, so we had to redesign that and change that. I called the state guys down there, like, yeah, good luck.
So who do you call, ANR?
It was the design, I think it was V-Trans, yeah.
Should be V-Trans, they built the road, they built the bridge.
So,
And Kevin, were you here when we had to put a bunch of riprap on the
yeah,
backside too? It caused that, it's caused by that too.
well, it's part of the river's, natural course, we have to keep protecting
Yeah.
our infrastructure and our land against it.
No, don't they have to get a permit from the Corps of Engineers when they're gonna redirect a river like that,
Sure.
even when it's not intentional?
Should have. I'm sure they did, and I'm sure that nobody thought there was gonna be a problem as a result of this.
No.
So more to come on that.
Well, yeah,
Let's see, what else we had? Oh, we had, the Weeblos in here. I don't know if you guys saw our Facebook page. That was pretty good. They were for, working toward their arrow of light and, learning about energy in the community and any energy problems we have in Scott. Gave them all the information they could possibly wanna know about. How things going on out here. Pretty good.
We both exhorted them on to become Eagle Scouts too, since we both have two sons that made it all the way, so.
Yeah.
Kevin and I had a good time, like, you know, go, you can do it.
Other than that, no, nothing really major. We had a backup on Congress Street that Minosh jumped in and helped us with and got that taken care of.
One thing I would add on Kevin's side is we had a chance to meet with the RG this afternoon, so, which is our hydro, people, and two just timing updates. So for the horizontal, we've been waiting for the bearings to show up. So he told us within a couple of weeks it'll happen, and it should be installed, so that should get the horizontal running at Katie's Falls. And then on the vertical, he told us, what did he tell us? March?
He's open next month or two.
Next month or two, so by March we should, so by the time the spring, runoff starts coming, the vertical should be back up and running as well, and that was a complete rebuild. So they basically got everything in their shop, retooled. There was one more part that they're still needing to retool, forget what it was.
Turn the shaft tomorrow.
Yeah, turn the shaft tomorrow, and then they can, and they're trying to figure out how to put, the bearings back in the bottom in a different way, how to wedge them. Cause there's not enough room in there to do it, so they're trying to come up with one new design element before they try to put it back together, and then they'll schedule it and get it in. If you got a question on that.
At the last meeting, Brad brought up that Lake Memorial has been all silted in and grown over and
Mhm.
since he remembers it a long time ago. And I can remember when it wasn't nearly as bad as it is now. But that was an artificial lake.
Mhm.
And, you know, if they were to dredge that to its, whatever it originally was, it would hold a lot more water and protect Johnson
Yep.
from some of these floods.
I am hoping the legislature has been making lots of noises that they really want to focus on the flood issues of the past year and hear about solutions. And while they're not going to start with the sort of very practical public works type of solution that you just brought up, we're going to talk about trying to reclaim and recreate more floodplain, so we can do it naturally, because that's what the environmentalists have told them to do. I think there'll be many of us who will go and testify and harken back to the 1920s when we built most of these flood control dams and created recommended dredging to reestablish the space. So what they'll do with all that, I don't know, Bob, but right now you couldn't get a permit to dredge Lake Memorial to save your life. Our Corps would reject you, the state would reject you, and
Did you see the letter that Howard Minosh wrote
Did.
last week?
yeah, no, it's well done. Kevin and I are gonna go visit with them and just let them know our take on all that. And that's, they just haven't been able to run over there yet, but we're gonna go visit with him and give him our take on all that. And he's absolutely right that, that's why the thing's designed to be able to take 15 feet of water out of it. People forget that that was not built as an electric generation dam, it was built as a flood control dam. And our new permits allow for 0.0 inches of drawdown.
It wasn't built as a tourist attraction either.
That's correct. So he's absolutely right in his assessment, so.
When do you think you'll go see him?
Sometime, we were talking about this week, I just wasn't in all day today, so probably tomorrow or the next day.
He only works in the morning too.
Yeah, I figure Kevin knows more than how to get him, so.
He works in the morning, last I knew, if he's
Yeah.
still even going into the office.
Well, that's the update on hydro, that all happened today, so I figured while you were on Kevin. I don't see Gary yet, so, any questions for Kevin? Want to go?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest focus for us in the office is answering phones for the new platform. We sent some emails out for our cycle one auto pay. And then as we started moving forward, we got phone calls for updating updating auto pay forms. And we're not doing them anymore in the old system, so we're sending links to the new system and the phone calls of paying, over the phone. Nope, not doing that anymore, here you go. And I sent out a bunch of emails for our cycle 2 and 3 auto pay customers, so we made the link not complete, it's live on our website when you click on online bill pay, but as I was saying in the beginning, some people have the link to the old system. But we are gonna be disabling that February 1, and today we actually put a note on that sign-in page that says it will be disabled. February 1, and with a link to the new system. So, we're getting through some bugs, but, overall, I think it's going pretty well.
Can you have it automatically just go to the, if they go to the old link and automatically redirect them to the new link without even have to?
We
Yeah.
will probably do that, Tom, when that link is disabled, it'll essentially bring them there, yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point, I'm not sure, because it's actually a separate server, I think, I don't know.
Who handles the? It would be DNS probably if you wanted to redirect, your current URL points to your old server.
Yeah, that old server is actually up for, it's about to be,
But you could redirect all the traffic
yes,
to the new one.
Yeah, I don't know.
With the old URL.
Kim's gonna take care of that, for me,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
I know Jamie knew everything you were talking about, but.
Well, yeah, I'm also thinking of the town's website, that they could probably use some help in terms of making the .org go away and some DNS work to,
Yeah,
and Google search results, they need some SOA,
yeah.
But, yeah,
Don't understand the language.
Yeah.
Acronyms there.
it just works, I don't know, until it doesn't, but, yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that part's gonna work,
Okay.
but it'll go away and,
It's, I'm sure you got a plan. for it.
yeah. But that's been the gist,
Just leave the mailbox up there.
yeah. And we have some people, like one person Friday, he's like, yeah, I'm not doing that, and then Monday or Tuesday, he's like, okay, how do I do this, and what, like, we walk them through it, so, and we've had to walk some people through that are not tech savvy at all.
No, that's pretty intuitive. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, we've had a couple people go, wow, is there gonna be a fee for using this, just because it's such an improvement? So. Yeah, we're excited, it'll save a lot of work, once we get everything done and completely transitioned over and learn the process, so.
David not being here, I'll just say, other than normal year-end stuff, he's been doing a lot of prep to make sure that two-pole replacement on the transmission line down in Stowe, which will happen the week of January 22nd, that major project, that we'll have everything here laid out, ready to go, so we can get in there and out of there really quick. And so all paperwork necessary to do that project has been filed, and so we're ready to do it. And those 90-year-old poles or 80-year-old poles that are gonna fall down, we'll get taken out.
It's just a place that didn't want to let us on the land.
Yep. You guys need a police escort or anything, or? In the paperwork we filed, we alerted them that we may be escorted by the police, so that we can gain access to replace those poles. And it's a pretty critical, it's a sub-transmission line for the whole state, so it's a pretty critical piece of infrastructure that you just gotta be able to replace. And we never wanna have to take that kind of action with the customer. It's the last thing in the world we want to do, but we also have an obligation, in this case, not only to our customers, but to the customers across the whole state, to make sure that line runs, right? So we're all set up, and David's got the poles and all the equipment he needs lined up, and we'll get in and out of there just as fast as we humanly can. So
And how long will there be a downtime or?
so the transmission line, we're coordinating with Velco and Vermont Power. There'll definitely be a downtime. Well, probably parts of 2 days is what we're anticipating. It could all happen in one day.
But that doesn't affect customers, right, it's just.
Won't affect
transmission.
any customers so long as,
I was gonna say 2 days, that might be.
well, yeah, so long as, we gotta manage what's going on with the grid, right? Because that all can get redirected to other parts of the transmission system, but not if it's too cold, right? So if it was too cold and electric use skyrockets, well, then you need all of them. So they have ways to reroute under certain conditions. That's why we told them we need a full week to do the project, because we need to time with Velcro when in that week, the conditions are right, that they can be without that line for a couple days. Yeah, so that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, well, I think that's probably what David would tell you, so. And then the one thing I'll just say, because I think then Gary will be here, is on my side, so we had a VEPSA meeting today. And we've been talking a lot the last year or so about all these policy changes coming from the state, and they're all gonna happen this year. So it's a big legislative year. We, through some dialogue that Penny and I had with VEPSA, VEPSA agreed to have the members become more involved in that process with the staff at VEPSA this year. They've created a legislative committee, to really be looking at all these renewable energy standard things, what's going on between heat standard, what's going on with all the low income subsidy bills that are in the legislature. It's just a full year like I've never seen before on this front. And, you know, it's all either gonna drive a lot of cost or not drive a lot of cost, depending on what they do, right? So the good news is, not only did they agree to create a legislative committee, which I think I'll be on, but they, also agreed to have some of us come and testify with them. So they, historically, GUPS's staff have just gone themselves. And this year they'll bring some various managers' points of view from the utilities to have their voice brought into. So it's a pretty high stakes year. It can really make an awful big difference in, you know, just how expensive electricity gets in the future. And so that's the goal, and just so you know. And will it be perfect? No, but at least we'll get our voice heard. So and I was glad that that's what agreed for that. So, and I think that's the end of the management report, and I see Gary is here,
Oh, I can see Brad now.
and we can see Brad, so when you're ready to go back to number 6, ready? Sure. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Well, let me just tee up, and Gary, welcome to the meeting. So the goal here, Gary runs the state's downtown designation program. And he'll give you his official title, that's probably not it, but he can tell you what his actual title is. The purpose here, at least from my perspective, I've told all of you, we can do downtown designation, we cannot do downtown designation, it's not a big thing for me. But what I've noticed in all the dialogues, both here and about town that I've heard about, is it just doesn't seem like the information squares up with reality. There's a whole lot of rumors about what control do you lose, what potential benefits do you get, what are the puts and takes? And for me, this is a civil engineering story, but I just want you to have the facts so you can make reasoned decisions. It seems like everybody is trending along a path of, hey, you know, let's update the town plan to at least enable the conversation. So assuming that's gonna happen, then with the downtown designation, figured who better to get the information from than Gary, since he runs the program. I put all of the brochures they have on their website in your packet, so you might have a chance to look at that as well. And if anyone ever does see this video, go to our website, pull the materials down, it's all there for you. Go to their website, it's all there for you. But then Gary's gonna give you, you know, some overview of the program, and really let you have some time to ask him the questions, because for me, if you've heard any rumors about what happens if you get involved with this program, this is the time to ask him. He's right here, right? So I don't have any other nefarious agenda than that. So, you know, so Gary, welcome. And I guess we'll give the floor to you.
Great. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all virtually. My name's Gary Holloway, and I'm the Downtown Program Manager with the Department of Housing and Community Development. Specifically, I work in the Community Planning and Revitalization Division in the department. I've been here about 10 years in this position, overseeing the downtown program, and I'm here today to kind of provide an overview of the program. I'll provide kind of a high-level overview, and I can talk about a few specifics, and then maybe, you know, allow some time for you all to ask some specific questions that you may have to kind of dispel any rumors or to make sure everyone has a good understanding of what the program is and what it isn't. The program's been around for 25 years now. We've been working with downtown organizations and municipalities. It's kind of that partnership between the two. Like in Morrisville, you have MAC and the town that were working together when they were in the program until 2016. Really, the program was born, you know, back in the late 90s out of a response to kind of some of the deterioration we were seeing in a lot of our downtowns and village centers around Vermont. We wanted to be able to provide a program that could help support reinvestment in those areas. So really the program is, first and foremost, is a program designed to make our centers stronger by providing resources to help property owners, to help municipalities, to support businesses, you know, and the organizations that are supporting all of that kind of vitality that we like to see in our communities. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about, you know, what the benefits of the program are. Maybe I can start with that first, and then I can go in and talk a little bit about, what you'd have to do to get designation. I can do that on a real high level pretty quickly, without going too far into the weeds. There's a few key benefits that can I guess I should stop a second. In order to get the designation, the municipality has to decide that they want to, they want to have a designation. We have a village center designation, which is easier to attain. And it doesn't have some of the same requirements the downtown designation have, but also doesn't have some of the same benefits the program has. So think of village center designation as kind of a light designation program that provides property owners tax credit relief and priority consideration for other grant programs. The downtown program provides things a little bit further for benefits, such as downtown transportation funds. So if you think of sidewalk enhancements or streetscape enhancements, wayfinding signage or beautification efforts of a park, or add lighting or benches and things of that nature, we have state funding that we can provide directly to the municipality, that only designated downtown organizations or a select group of village centers are eligible. Right now, that program offers about $200,000, up to $200,000 grants annually that are kind of 80-20 match. And like I said, it's flexible state funding, so it's very popular to kind of tag on to some other more, additional transportation projects that you might be using federal money or other funding for. In the past, Morrisville has taken advantage of that. Like I said, until they were de-designated in 2016, they applied for small grants, and over the years, about $260,000 went to the town to support those projects. Tax credits is another popular program. And this is not to be confused with like housing tax credits. This is more historic state tax credits that goes towards the rehabilitation of buildings. So if you imagine a building that might have some work being done by a property owner, that property owner can apply to us to get money to improve their facade. Maybe they're doing code improvements to put an elevator or ADA accessibility, or maybe they need to do some energy retrofit. So some of these elements can apply for different percentages of eligibility. And essentially what it is, it's a tax credit off of their income liability. So when they're filing their taxes and they have a liability, they can take that money and use that. Or they can sell the tax credits to banks or insurance companies, which happens about half the time. So that's a benefit directly to property owners. Over the years, Morrisville took advantage of that program and got nearly $600,000 in tax credits that went directly to property owners. We have a new fund that we're providing, since there's kind of a partnership, as I mentioned before, between a downtown organization like MAC and the municipality is like a requirement of the program. That downtown organization now can receive direct funding from the state to help them with their capacity. So work that they're trying to do, if they need to get staff up from a part-time to a full-time position, or if they are running some programs, some beautification programs or promotional efforts to draw people into town that kind of help improve economic vitality, they can apply for this funding up to $25,000 to help annually to help support the downtown organization and the work that they're doing. We have a relatively new program called Better Places. And in fact, we've talked to the arts group there in Morrisville about some projects that they're interested in doing. But one of the requirements is you have to have a designation in order to be eligible for that program. And that's called Better Places. And that's a crowdfunding program that would be done locally to raise money, say for, I'm just going to make this up, say there's a park improvement that the community wants to get behind, and the community raises $10,000. Well, we can do a 2-to-1 match, and we can give them $20,000 for that project if they raise those funding. But once again, you have to have a designation with the state in order to be eligible for that funding. Other specific to downtown designation, there's some Act 250 relief. Just enough about Act 250 to be dangerous, but essentially there's relief for mixed priority housing projects. So there's exemptions there for those types of projects, and there's permit relief where there's capped fees, or in many cases, no permit fees. So saving money for developers who are trying to do projects within downtowns. And that's been kind of a hot topic of debate in terms of like expanding that and make it even more, making it better for designated downtowns. And then the last couple things I'll mention is, we have a neighborhood development program, and having a core designation like downtown designation makes the town eligible for that that added layer of designation that you can apply for neighborhoods. And I won't go into detail on that, but just imagine some additional relief for developers who might be building housing in neighborhoods around the downtown, as well as the tax credit program, which expands into those areas, so allows those property owners in that kind of ring around the downtown to also be eligible for the tax credit program. And then finally, I'll just say that there's priority consideration for many other grants like municipal planning grants or community development block grants that any municipality can apply for. But if you have designation, you get priority consideration. So you'll see a higher chance of getting funded when you're competing against other applications, either within the region or within the state. So as far as benefits, that's a real high level overview of benefits. As I mentioned in the very beginning, once designation is, once the town applies for designation and receives that, it's really an opt-in program. It's a benefit opt-in program. So it doesn't mean that just because you have this designation, now we get to tell you what you can do locally. We're not going to tell you what color you can paint a building, or that you can't do a certain project. But just like with any funding, if you apply for state funding, you're going to be required to follow whatever state guidelines for that particular funding source is. That's just, general standard for any kind of funding that you would apply for. There is a requirement that the municipality comes back every 8 years and reapplies for that designation. And we do have requirements, and we've worked, closely, even in recent days or months, with the town in terms of providing them information about how to apply for the designation, and the things that I won't go into detail, but like I said, I'll mention a few things that you'll need to have as in terms of requirements to get into the program. I mentioned the one that you have to have a downtown organization that's kind of separate from the municipality, that's functioning as its own nonprofit, that's supporting the municipality in their kind of reinvestment, their efforts to support downtown. There is wastewater kind of capacity to make sure that there's room for future growth. There's a requirement to have a confirmed regional, a confirmed town plan. And that was one of the reasons why Morrisville kind of get kicked out back in 2016, is because they chose to leave the Regional Planning Commission. But they're back in, and they're members, and they can, there's some minor amendments. In my understanding I'm not exactly sure where things stand right now, but last I heard from the town that there was an opportunity to make a minor amendment to the town plan, in which case LCPC was very supportive of making that friendly kind of a minor amendment that was a requirement, and then they could potentially confirm that town plan, which was what our recommendation was back this fall. But it sounded like there was also some zoning bylaw updates and some other things that maybe were happening in that order, and waiting on this particular piece. So I can hold that and answer questions around that later. So there is that requirement that you have that confirmed town plan. There's a planning commitment, which just basically gets stakeholders on board to say, these are the types of things that we're going to do with the designation, just so people are aware. And then let me just check my notes here and see if I'm missing anything major in terms of the requirements. Oh, right. And another one is that there's a confirmed, there's a planning commitment, and that can be achieved either through having a local development review board that can review Act 250. If you have a design review district, or if you have a local historic district, those kind of need to meet the standards, for within the zoning bylaws, that there is that kind of local body that's there to kind of protect kind of the future investments of the downtown. Once again, that's a local control. That's not a state control. That's just us saying you have to have that kind of mechanism of control locally. And then let me just check my notes here if I'm missing anything else. Oh, and yeah, there's a municipal capital budget and program, so that you have investments around things like drinking water, public spaces, wastewater, lighting, stormwater, transportation, things of that nature within a capital improvement plan. So those elements kind of come together into an application. The downtown organization puts a strategic plan together in terms of how they're going to make their investments as the nonprofit with the municipality. And then we can accept applications. Any month there's a downtown board meeting, which happens, 9 or 10 times a year. We receive an application, we can review it, and then downtown board staff, upon staff's recommendation, can review and consider designation the fourth Monday of any month. So that's kind of a quick and dirty. As I mentioned, I've been in conversations with the town. I've been in conversations with LCPC, over the past several months, in terms of just providing information about how to go about doing this if the town so chooses. But I can pause there, and I'm happy to, answer any specific questions that you all have.
So is each one of these designations separate? I mean, you got your downtown, you got your
Right.
village center, you got your neighborhood development area, they're all separate designations?
Yeah, so we have 5 designated programs, and think of it as we have 3 core designations. One is downtown designation as a core. Village center would be for some of our smaller communities who don't have can't meet the requirements of downtown designation. And then we have new town centers, which are for places like South Burlington or Colchester, who don't have like a traditional historic settlement pattern, that have have the ability to kind of establish a center. And then the other areas, like neighborhood development areas or growth centers, are an add-on to that core designation. So if you wanted to have a neighborhood development area, for example, you'd have to have a core designation first.
Before downtown designation.
Right.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I can say that I think Morrisville would fit more of the bill of a downtown than a village center. The requirements I just read through, with the exception, I think, of the town plan being confirmed, I think the town can get there in terms of meeting the requirements. They have a downtown organization, they have a capital improvement plan, they have a lot of these elements in place. I haven't reviewed that, so I can't say for certain. But it does seem like that would be the right fit for the town. So you have to have the core designation though. You can't have multiple you can't have village and downtown designation, for example.
Well, the reason I'm asking this is the last election go around, sidewalks were a big issue. And funding for sidewalks. And pretty much where they want to put the sidewalks is not in the district that was part of our last designated downtown. So we could apply for another designation to bring them out. To bring the area out that's covered.
Yeah, we have, with certain municipalities that have like multiple village centers, for example, like we have certain places that have 4 or 5 village centers designated within one municipally owned, area. But in the case of, you'd have to be more specific for me to understand if it was not in downtown Morrisville and there was another area.
It's in the area I'm talking about is adjacent to the downtown. It's like downtown comes up Park Street and up Elmore Street.
Oh, yeah,
stops.
sure.
And the side streets that go down, like Port Street, which needs new sidewalks, isn't part of the old designated downtown.
Right.
So what I'm asking you is, if we had one of these added on designations, would it include that area?
Yeah, for the sake of like the sidewalk argument, we can, we do define an area. And so if that area is outside of that downtown, we can fund like sidewalk connections. So for example, if there was like no sidewalk into an area that needed improvements, or the sidewalk was so bad and deteriorated, it was not safe, we could use the downtown transportation fund to make that connection. If it's a direct connection into the downtown, we could, just with the downtown designation, you could achieve that by having that. If, like I said, if it's an island out a half mile away and it's not really connecting directly to the downtown, then it probably wouldn't be a good fit. But if it is directly connecting, and we've done that I believe before in town, where the sidewalk, part of the sidewalk was in the boundary and part of the sidewalk was leading outside of the boundary.
So you make a sidewalk contiguous. I mean, we've got
Right.
sidewalks that go for half a mile and there's 200 feet missing. And
Yep.
then they go for 150 feet and there's no crosswalk and there's another 100 feet missing.
Right.
And I presume it's also true that the area that was designated last in 2016, if conditions have changed, which in the case that Bob is talking about, they have, there's been a lot of new housing development immediately adjacent. Presumably, if the town chose, they could apply for a slightly different boundary condition, correct?
Yeah, it's an entirely new application. So there's an opportunity to come in and with a new lens and look at that area and say, really, we'd like to expand it beyond where we had it. And I can guide them on that process. It's usually around, it's usually anchored in certain areas by, civic buildings, or in some cases, it's anchored by, housing. Usually if it's housing, it's more multi-unit housing and not like general neighborhood housing. We usually don't just include swaths of neighborhoods in the designated area. It's more around the commercial core. But certainly
This is among the largest multifamily housing in town.
It is.
I think it is the largest, so that, and there's been multiple
Yeah.
buildings of that sort immediately outside the current, what you would historically call the downtown.
right.
Right?
Yep.
So,
Yep. So there could be an opportunity to look at that.
yeah.
For sure.
Gary, it all sounds really good, and I see a lot of benefits, but as a town, we're gonna lose some kind of control, I think, and I wanna know what that would be, if there are any, like Act 250, I think doubles in the downtown before it's triggered. You can set up 16 units, you can put 36 units in a downtown designated complex. Is that, am I correct in that?
Yeah, I mean, around the Act 250 conversation, like I said, I know just enough to be dangerous. So I defer a lot to my colleagues who work more specifically on that. But it's a benefit to have. It's a benefit to have the Act 250 relief in the downtown, and it's not gonna make anything more difficult. I think that's the easiest way to say it. And in fact, it provides more opportunities. It doesn't provide any more. By not having it, you still have to go through Act 250. If you have it, you have to go through it, but there's some relief valves for you. So if I think of it more that way, we don't get to tell you what to do any more or less with or without. So by having downtown designation, it doesn't, the state doesn't get any more control over you in any way whatsoever. It really is a benefit program, and it's an opt-in to either take advantage of those benefits or not.
But it is true, Tom, and I think he's saying this, but he's just not sure. It is true that it is a higher level of development that triggers Act 250. Most communities in Vermont see that as a benefit. That's why you're saying it's a loss of control, and he's saying it's a benefit. Everybody else that talks to him says that's a benefit.
Right.
To have this Act 250. I know you see it as a loss of control, so.
Well,
Just to help with the language on that.
Development is fine in our town with all the stuff going up, but I just wanna be sure that we're not adopting something that's developer friendly more than it is community friendly.
Right.
So that's what I wanna make sure we're asking about.
Well, I think that's where some of your local zoning too can kind of help control that, in terms of how you want to control the built environment. I certainly hear what you're saying. It's like places that are growing too fast, for example. You want to make sure that it's not turning into something that you don't want it to be as a community. So I can certainly respect where you're coming from there. But I think that controls more at the local level than it is at the state level.
What, Carl, had a question?
Yeah, I guess I've got a couple. One, thank you for doing this, Scott. And Gary, thank you for being here. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was on the website trying to figure out what's the issue here, what was the negative? And I remember that conversation. Was there something else though, too, that we were like warned about that?
There was also,
Trying to
there
remember.
was also a rumor, and Gary, you can just dispel this one, that if you got downtown designation, that there's a mandatory requirement, to build more for low and moderate income housing.
That there's a requirement to do that? No,
Oh.
there's no requirement that you build any housing. I mean, if you don't want to build any
Something
housing,
in town plan.
Wasn't it something to do with the flow of the river and the floodplain and what was that all about?
That was the town plan.
We could
So-
develop,
But wasn't there
Okay.
something that had to be in the town plan that,
The original town plan, I was at the meeting at the planning board when they rejected it. And they did it because they had this thing about the run of the river,
Right.
right? And the run of the river that they had covered Mike Alexander's house. It covered, I can't think of their last name, but, Ron Terrell's house, which is 80 feet above the river.
So that was all
It's on High,
how the
it's on High
plan-
Street.
That was how the plan was written, nothing to do with this particular.
That was the
topic.
way Lamoille County Planning Commission was interpreting the state requirements for the run of the river.
Okay.
right, so,
Thomas eventually got that straightened out because they were using a map that
Okay.
wasn't any good.
Alright.
But that was the thing about the flood.
Sounds
Right.
like-
Thanks.
So there-
sounds like- Go ahead.
so I was just gonna say, I mean, there are, from time to time, the state has requirements that then the regional plans have to have, right? And then and if you're gonna have a regionally confirmed municipal plan, then there are requirements that you have to abide by, within that. And I think that may be what you're speaking to. And it, like I said, my understanding from talking to, from Tasha, and Seth, is that they're willing to work with, the town in terms of accepting a small amendment that is basically holding them up as a requirement to have in the town plan. That they could, if they could make that amendment, that they'd be able to move forward and regionally confirm the plan. But that's the part that I think keeps getting spun around, that there's all these other things. And I keep encouraging the town to work closely with the Regional Planning Commission if there's any questions around that, or to reach out to us. Because I think there's information that's getting twisted around somehow, and I'm not sure it's factual.
Just to
So-
put his point on that issue is the 2 sentences about transportation.
About the speed limit,
Speed limit,
so, and
yeah,
that stuff, yeah.
Those
Speed
two
limit,
sentences get,
right.
those 2 sentences get deleted, and my understanding is the regional planning commission will approve the plan.
Yeah, I think we talked about that at one of the other meetings. They said we'd do it, just bring it up and we'll do it.
Right. Yeah.
What, I'm sure it's just something I missed here along the description of everything, what's LCPC got to do with this program? I mean, what's the tie in there? We could,
The state works with the regional planning commissions who work with the towns. And so there's state requirements that are kind of passed down through the regional planning commissions. So because if for this particular program, the one requirement that ties into what does LCPC have to do with it, they have to regionally confirm the municipal plan. And if they don't, then you're not meeting a requirement of the program.
okay, thank you.
And in part, that's saying that the town plan comports with state law. Right?
Correct. That's exactly right. That we're kind of checking that box that this is meeting the state. The state's saying this is law, and you have to abide by that. And these things come up from time to time, and we're not asking everyone to update their plans every year. It's just from time to time you have new laws that come out, and they have to get incorporated if they're going to get amended or confirmed.
Brad, you got any questions?
Not right now.
I figured I'd check.
They've pretty much been answered.
All right.
And like-
Gary, with the tax credits, is that any property owner or is that commercial buildings specifically?
it's any income producing property. So it's not limited to commercial. It could be, you could have a duplex, a property owner that has a duplex that he's renting, and that could be considered an income producing property. So it can be commercial, it can't be like owner occupied residential.
Okay, thank you.
I know, I was just gonna say, I know it's irregular, but.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Because of the-
Don or-
because of the guests we have, I don't know if you
Yeah.
wanna ask them.
And we have, and I will mention that we do have quite a few folks each year reach out from Morristown wanting to apply for that program, and unfortunately, Caitlin needs to tell them they're not eligible.
Yeah. Okay. You wanna go? Your
Sure. Gary, thank you very much for coming. This is Don McDowell. I'm a resident of Morristown. I also happen to be on the select board. But I'm really here just trying to get educated about this downtown designation. As Tom said earlier on, I think it was Tom or Scott mentioned, there seemed to be a lot of misinformation going on out there. And in particular about some of the detriments of downtown designation. I'm just wondering, are there detriments that other towns have suggested might be out there, whether they are or not, that we're not talking about tonight, that we should know about, that we might expect people to come up with, present to us?
No, like I said, it's really an opt-in program. So the designation just serves as kind of qualifying for benefits. Just look at it that, I mean, think about it that way. If you don't like following historic preservation standards, then don't apply for tax credits. If you don't like the way that the rules are around the downtown transportation fund, then you don't have to apply for that funding. So it's like each program has slightly different requirements that you're eligible for. But it's by just having the designation in and of itself, nothing really changes in terms of how you're functioning as a municipality or what people are allowed to do or not do within their downtown. So there's no, like, we don't, in other words, this program is it's not designed to be entirely regulatory. I mean, there is a regulatory component in terms of like meeting requirements in your zoning bylaws or meeting requirements in that satisfy state law, but we're not trying to dictate how things happen for your community. That's really up to the locality to determine how they want to develop their community. And we're trying to lower bars and lower provide triggers of benefits and lower thresholds for in the Act 250 case. We are trying to help people develop a little bit easier in downtowns as opposed to in greenfields where we don't want to see sprawl. We are trying to attract the investment into the commercial cores where we have water and wastewater and we have the capacity. So no, I'm not really hearing, I've been here for 10 years and I don't see people trying to get out of the program. I think in the whole time I've been here, I think we've had maybe 2 property owners that have been in the boundary that chose to not be in the boundary, and it was just because we're not quite sure why they didn't want to. They just didn't like being part of it for some reason. But otherwise, your property could be in the boundary and you could be eligible for tax credits and not apply for it, and you can paint your house polka dotted and we don't care. So
The only other question I've got, I think, is these tax credits that you're talking about, are they also referred to as TIFs? Are we talking the same thing, or is that a different story?
no, that's a totally different program. That's tax incremental financing. And so tax incremental financing is something a community can apply for separately. And that's that's a complicated program, but essentially it helps to kind of reinvest money back into a community and help developers and help municipalities kind of attract investment through the tax incremental financing program. But there's a handful, we have a handful of programs in the state, like St. Albans has taken advantage of that program, and Newport has participated in the past, or Montpelier has been in. But that's a totally different, complicated program that doesn't have anything to do with specifically around the designation. Although you need to have a designation to be eligible for the tax increment financing, but it is a different application and process altogether.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm James Brewster. I think you might be able to see me, I'm
You
not
can,
sure.
yeah.
And I'm the only one in the room that's not part of the municipal government in some way, just a resident. But I'd like to say thank you for putting this together. Because as a resident, I am looking for answers on downtown designation. I'm very pleased to see Don here as a member of the select board. And additionally, I'm here, I did participate in, the town plan and had my input there and have followed it since to include the denial by LCPC. And so I continue to follow that, and I've been very interested to see what this body's point of view is on re-engaging with LCPC. So at the moment, I'm pleased. And hope that, that can get moved forward with certain individuals within the town who may not be in agreement with you.
Perfect, thanks.
Travis, you have anything? I think you got you on the line.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Gary, this has been great. I'm glad we got it right from the horse's mouth, saying, and it's good to kind of clear up some of these things that have been out there, and I find it very helpful, and I hope everybody else did too. And once again, thanks for coming out tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to reach out and follow up with any questions. If there's information that didn't make sense, or you need me to, follow up on anything or give you additional resources, I'm happy to send anything along. Hopefully, I'll track it. I'm here to help the town, and when they're, ready to proceed with things. It doesn't have to be a long, arduous process. I think getting some of these components in place are really critical. And once they're in place, actually going through the application can be done, in a 3-4 months, we could probably get through everything. So just let me know how I can help.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Yep.
Take care all. Have a good evening.
And just for other folks, so by Friday, we record these really, so that's how we do our minutes. So by Friday, this will be up on our YouTube channel, and I may need to have the help of someone's kid, but if I can figure out how to do it, once I post the whole thing, I'll also try to just take this piece out, and we'll share that with Judy, to get to select board members and post it separately. So if somebody just wants to see the piece about downtown, they don't have to listen to the rest of our meeting. And I'll see if I can figure out how to do that. I used to know how to do it when my kids taught me.
Just have another link and have it start, and it'd be the whole thing.
Doesn't work that
Start
way.
it and then continue the spot.
But if not, I can find some kid that can show me. So, but anyway, worst case, the whole video will be there by Friday. So if you hear from someone on select board, like I'd like to see it, just go to our YouTube channel, we'll do that. Okay.
And I just want to be clear, I'm not here representing the select board. They didn't authorize, I just want to be clear, they didn't authorize or expect me to be here. I just came because I happened to click on a front porch forum post and look at your agenda, and I have talked to Tasha and Seth at LCPC quite a bit, and well, on 2 occasions about downtown designation, and when I saw this, and I knew Gary was the guy to talk to, that's why I'm here tonight, so.
Perfect.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the draft budget.
Okay.
So, come on,
I'm not part of the village.
You have the pleasure, you gotta stay for the pain.
I'll stay if you want to stay for hours.
Touche.
Yeah, Scott, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, guys.
We need that.
So while Penny's getting those out to you, let me just set the table for you. We're gonna show you quickly an update on the water budget, but as it relates to the electric budget. So, we're still working at this, and it occurred to us, we really need to do some multi-year modeling here for you. To really see, I was thinking of, the other day when I was driving in my truck that.
Brad, are you in a location that I can send you an email?
Yes,
You want me to send it to you? Cause I just realized you won't be seeing this.
If you could, that'd be great, Penny.
Let me do
And
that later.
Travis too.
And what about you, Travis?
Yeah.
Can you get it if I?
While she's doing that, I can. Yeah, the budget, yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
But it'll be hard for them to see, it'll be easier for them to see if you can set it on the screen. So, we're gonna do some more modeling about, what does this whole cycle look like, this funding issue with electric? Cause it occurred to me, like, this is just, we were in it last year, we're still in it, we're gonna be in it for another year or two. These challenges, that kind of conflate with power supplies getting a lot more expensive, right? And the state's running all these mandates at us that all cost a bunch of money. And then the state system requires us to be a year and a half behind on collecting for anything they make us do new, or any new costs that come. It takes us a year and a half before we're allowed to collect any money for it, because it has to be based on the previous year actual, not on a budget that includes increasing costs. So it really gets very complicated, and we're coming to talk to you about a 1-year piece with deficit spending every year, and it's like, well, where does this end, right? So I got thinking about that. We're not fully there yet, but I did want to just give you a highlight of what that starts looking like, both for this year and in coming years. And we're gonna do more modeling on that, but, so what we're talking about in this year's budget that you're gonna start looking at there is a need of about a 10% rate increase. The state won't approve that because some of that's new spending that we're having to do to keep up with them, so it won't be eligible. And thus, what we told you we're modeling, which was 2% in the local control that we can do and have in place by April, and 5% that we're guessing might be what they'll approve. When we go through a whole process based on 2023 year actuals, by the time they approve it and all the time frames go that you have to allow it, sit with the public, all of that stuff, we're guessing maybe they'll approve another 5. Which means we're gonna get 2 for 2/3 of the year and 5 for 1/3 of the year, so almost no money in 2024, even though we have all this expense we have to deal with, right? So those 2 rate increases in 2024 will raise $400,000 more in 2024 than it raises in 2025 than it raises in 2024 because of these lags. So that means cash flow is gonna be a problem for the foreseeable future, which we've been telling you about, right? So this year's budget that we're gonna walk you through is around a 10% problem. And then I'm guessing, and again, I wanna do some more modeling because Penny and I haven't had time to talk about this multi-year piece yet. I'm guessing between 25 and 26, there's probably another 10%-ish of what, with all the state requirements coming at us, it's requiring us to update all our technology. We told you we're gonna have to do the finance system, we're gonna have to do the building system, we're doing the AMIs, and this, the advanced metering stuff that has costs. There's just thing after thing after thing after thing. It's all to keep up with being ready with all the mandates you're passing, right? And all of them have a lag effect. So I got kind of thinking about that. I think after that, there'll always, there'll be normal rate increases, but I don't think they'll be extraordinary after that. I think there's a chance that things will calm down by then. And maybe by 2027, when you think about that, that budget, 2 or 3 budgets from now, maybe by then, we'll have caught up on this year after year lag effect, so that we won't be cash poor. We won't be having to have line of credit spending. At some point, we should be able to catch up on that, right? Once we make these investments and the years kind of normalize, right? So we're probably in this using a line of credit for that many years. Again, we're gonna do a little modeling on this. I'm trying to give you a highlight to give you context for this budget. The other thing I then thought about for context is, well, so where do we sit right now? When we're talking to the public, and this isn't great news for the public, right? So where do we sit right now? And where will we sit at the end of these type of numbers? So right now, our rate's around 16 cents. Our average bill residential is around $75 a month. And we're the 5th lowest of 17 utilities in the state. just to give you a sense. So there's only 4 with lower residential rate than us.
One of them is Swanton, and that's because they got 100%
Right, exactly.
renewable with their hydro. And
So if we have this 10% problem this year, and assuming we have another 10% to go, like I said, if that number's even close to right, we'd end up around 19.5 cents. Just to give you a sense, which is around a $90 bill. I'm thinking that would put us about, 10, we're more right in the middle of the group. I don't know, because who knows what they're gonna do for rate increases, right? So it's a little bit of a guess by 2027. Today, the average residential rate in Vermont, is 20.7 cents. So we, even in the worst case, will be cheaper by the time we cycle through this than the average resident in Vermont today. And other people's rates are gonna go up too. So we'll still be, our folks will be paying less than the average. And the average bill in Vermont today is $116. So our folks actually conserve more. That's percentage wise, that differential, that $75 to $116. Our average bill when we're at 19.5 cents will only be $90. So our folks actually use less kilowatt hours per month than the average Vermonter. I think probably it's because so many people in Chittenden County have air conditioning now. I don't know what else it could be. It's gotta be something like that. But
does that include customer charges though?
yeah, it does.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And that too.
And then just because you always hear the narrative that Vermont's electric bills are so much higher than the rest of the country, and that's really because GMP drives that average bill and theirs is so much higher. We're right now just about dead average for the United States on rate. 16 cents is the national average for an electric rate today. But interestingly, and today our average bill is $75. The average electric bill in the United States at 16 cents is $146. Because people use more electricity, they both conserve less, or they live in a place that needs air conditioning. So both today, our folks are actually in a very advantageous position. And even if we have to cycle through these upcoming tumult of rate increases, folks will not be disadvantaged either in the state or nationally from either a rate or a bill perspective. That doesn't make this all easy and make it go away. It's not the point of it. It just is to help us have perspective of, there's gonna be some pain here, but we're not getting crazy out of the realm of the norm, right? We're still actually cheaper than the norm for folks. So just for what that's worth, perspective. And with that, you want to cycle through the water one first?
Yeah, the water is just really,
And that's just a quick update, so go ahead.
I think the water was the top one. The only change at this point in time in the water is that we did put a 5% rate increase into effect as of April 1st, which gave us about an additional $24,000 in revenue.
That's the first time since when?
2015.
So leaves us slightly deficit spend, right? Correct?
Yeah.
Which we have the cash for, and what we're trying to do there is manage rate increases for folks. So if we do 5% this year and then a small one next year, we'll get that back in the ground. Plus, we haven't factored in any new fees once we have the water ordinance in place, because we don't know how to estimate them yet. So we'll also then by next year know what that period for us.
As I'm looking at this print off, I do see there's one change that didn't save, and that is the grant income. Right now, the grant income is listed in 2024. That actually belongs in 2023 projected. I'll have to book that. And then, the cash flow will come through.
Yeah.
Which I do have on, the cash flow, but.
Yeah. But we're not looking at any action to that.
No,
It's just an update,
yeah,
just so
it's
you're
just-
aware.
So, yeah,
I got a question that's,
on what? I'm
the
sorry?
meter charge,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
on the water revenue, the meter charge,
Yeah,
is the 1 inch the smallest meter you have?
the 1 inch, no, the less than 1 inch, yes. The lower than 1, the very first row,
Oh, okay.
it's actually 5/8 inch.
Yeah.
That's the smallest.
Mhm.
And that customer charge, I think, is 20 I don't know, it used to be 2298. Is that what it is now, or, yeah, okay,
For 5/8 and 3/4.
yeah. And do you know how many 3/4 we have? It's
In the
all
system?
yeah. No, okay, I didn't know if you did, but.
Okay.
And then we don't have 3 inch, and that probably can get taken off here at some point, but.
Other than that, nothing changed from last time. Anything else on the electric?
For the next.
It'll take a little longer.
A little bit longer, sure. So as Scott alluded to, so this 2024 budget, the revenue does project with a 2% rate increase effective April 1st. And then a 5% effective October 1st. Again, don't know what we're gonna get, don't know when we're gonna get it, but that's what we're shooting for in this budget. We are seeing an increase in purchase power, 2024 over 2023 projected, and that's about 300, a little over 300,000. And again, those numbers come right now from BEPSA. We are doing better in 23 compared to budget. System expense, we're actually, 2023, we actually saw, an increase for 23. The number's dropping back off for 24, but it does include more tree trimming. About 25,000 more, and then the wages are being moved over to capital. Spend time with the pole, installing poles and, some other capital work, so for the system expense, we will see a small little drop. Customer account expense, we're seeing a pretty good increase, and a lot of that has to do with, increase in salaries. And there's a new position that we put in, I think effective April 1st. And also the invoice cloud, we're gonna see overall, and that's gonna be split between electric, water and sewer, I think about a $40,000 to $45,000 increase. And again, that's all based on projections of the use, how many people are gonna use it and register and use credit cards and paperless. And then as we move to administration, again, there's salary increases there. Some of this has to do with just allocation of time. Outside services, VEPSA charges, we're going up about 30-something thousand, I believe it was.
And just so you know, it's not just largesse on their part, it's the same thing that we're getting hit with, which is all these requirements. They're having to hire more staff so that they can, so we don't have to hire more staff. They can they're basically helping us fend off all these issues with the state, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that they're having to invest more in.
What's the position you?
I mean, right now, it's listed as an assistant controller. Something to kind of either run the office more and or, man, we haven't really nailed it down, but work more on either the special projects or getting the financial information to you in day-to-day stuff, operations, but.
I don't contemplate a time in the next 3 to 5 years that we don't have a technology / customer service initiative going. Right now it's the invoice cloud, and then it's gonna be the new finance system, and then it's gonna be the new customer billing system, and then this, yeah, and so so Penny ends up driving that, and then there's, so then who's doing the finances then, right? So, or the new person should drive those, and Penny should do the job that she actually is in, so that's the problem we're having.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're looking at now.
Alright,
Yeah, I mean, I'm spending a lot of time managing these projects and directing the staff and showing them how to do it and
Yeah.
making sure it's working okay and.
Yeah.
Our property insurance has continued to increase. Real estate taxes, it's property taxes, those are going up. Depreciation is going up. We've got some vehicles in the budget for capital that hopefully the line truck will come in this year, because that was due to come in 23.
And then there's two pickups in this that were originally budgeted in 23, but when we were having all the challenges with cash, we just stopped all that stuff and poured cash, but we got, you know, they've got two pickups. I think there's one in your budget, if I recall. So
Definitely one that the meter, we need to get the meter budget,
Yeah.
meter truck.
So
Place.
just so you're aware that basically, at least on the electric side, it's the same ones that were in last year's budget that we just didn't, the line truck didn't arrive, it's not built yet. And the pickups we waited on just to work.
And just a little background, like for the vehicles, we do fund a vehicle replacement fund, so
Yeah.
that's where the money will come from, but, you know, we still, in this budget, we are funding that about $70,000 in 2024. And that's based on depreciation of these vehicles.
And just as a thank you to you all, it was like over a year ago that you approved that line truck, and the bid was like 324 or something like that, $1,000 or something like that, which is, I don't know about you, but that's tough for me to swallow. The manager at Swan told me he just ordered 2 new line trucks that will be delivered in 2.5 years, and they're 500,000 a piece. Same thing, same thing.
Can we sell them our old ones?
You know, so, you know, that's
Especially one of them, there's the reason it's not, it's
a
going.
lot of the price of those.
What's the management committee?
Management community, that is, what goes into that? Time spent, like a lot of the time spent, we charge our labor there for these meetings. Like if I go to NEPA, if I go to VEPSA, he goes to NEPA or VEPSA. If the guys do any work, out in the community, putting up the flags,
Okay.
the lighting, that all gets charged there. It's mostly, I can't think of anything other than like labor and overhead. And then if you move down to the non-operating section, you'll see a large increase in the interim loan. So that 73,000 is, there's a line of credit that we have currently, and then also the hydro loan that I think you guys approved at one of the last meetings, the construction loan, and then we'll have them sign documents at the next meeting.
Both of those are in that.
Yeah. The interest expenses, yes.
Yeah. And the construction loan at some point will go away and will be converted to long-term debt, but in the meantime, we're still gonna have to pay short-term interest, right?
It's about a little over 5%.
Right.
And I'm not sure that bond interest will be a lot less, but it's also what the DPS or PUC wants, so.
Yep.
So you'll see that that does come down to a net loss of 707,000. Some of which are, you know, non-cash items, which depreciation, and then we have the GASB 68, which is our pension liability. There is a 50 grand as a placeholder budgeted. But if you want to move over to the back page of the electric, that is the cash flow. One of the things that it is,
One that looks like this.
yeah, we never.
No, I forgot.
On the backside, there you go, Bob. So this just kind of walks through where some of our cash is gonna come from. And like I said, basically you take your net income and you add back the non-cash expenditures. Since depreciation expense, we've already spent the cash when we bought the line truck, or we bought the poles or whatever, so it's not really a output of cash at the time it's booked on the income statement. We will and or should receive money from FEMA for Storm Elliott, about 109,000, and then I have an estimate of 50 grand for the flood. Hopefully that'll be received in 2024. And then, again, the interim loan for the hydro construction, 400,000. We have, it will be coming in down lower. There is the expense or the capital item for the actual work on that. We still have room in our line of credit, which we will likely need to draw on, so I threw that in for cash. We're also looking at potentially maybe having another line of credit or construction loan for some electric projects, and I mentioned to Scott, I forgot to actually pull up that or bring in that listing of construction projects, but we have about $330, I think, $1,000 worth of pole replacements, as part of the construction, and then there's, breaker works, like substation work that, is also budgeted, and some work on Route 12. So that's what that 466,000 is. Again, it's something, in order for us to get through 2024, we'll likely need to borrow some more money, if we're gonna get that project work done. The $410,000, that's gonna come out of the vehicle replacement. And that's to cover the bucket, and then the 2 pickup trucks, which again are down below under the capital expenditures. And then lastly, we have, in this area, we have, contingency reserve fund that was set aside at the beginning, maybe back as far as 2005, when the, bond was taken out. We were required to put money aside, so we have been able to draw on that to basically pay our loan payments. The amount due on that loan is, was equivalent to or less than what we had in that account, so we've been drawing on that for a number of years. Again, the capital expenditures are listed here, and I apologize, I don't have a detailed list here, but we can certainly send that to you. But again, a lot of the T&D I just mentioned is pole replacement and substation work. The trucks administration, that, software and computers, there's, I think, 75,000 as an estimate for the finance system. And then 10,000 for some computers, and that may be a little high. We've got meters of 30,000. Again, we have been working on getting meters from other utilities. Given the fact that we're gonna be switching to AMI, we have been trying to reach out to our NEPA member utilities to see if they have meters. And we actually got well over 200 to help with the building over there by you, Bob.
And those were, we didn't do anything for those, right?
No, they're all, so, I mean, that's,
Maybe we can keep doing, maybe we
Correct.
can keep getting lucky, but. And then our intention is once we get the AMI meters and somebody else needs those, we'll do the same thing, you know, just pass them along.
and then, like I mentioned, the 70 grand, that has to go into the vehicle replacement. The one thing that this budget does not do, does not do is we're using the dividend income from the Vermont Transco stock. So historically, prior to 2023, we had put that money into the Green River CD, and restricted it, you know, by you folks. We did not do that in 23. We actually used it for operating cash, as well as we used, I never did take that out. Well, I had your approval to use some money, but I never took it out to use it for construction. And at this point, we've got a little over $1 million in that CD. And with this draft right now, we are not requesting to take any out other than just using the dividend income.
Which is the one sort of saving grace, right? So while we don't end up with a lot left in the checking account, there is $1 million sitting there, which is our backstop, if you will. Thank goodness we have it, right?
And that hasn't held up our rate increase.
They haven't caught on yet.
Okay. Well, we won't talk about it.
I mean, how do we square that though with, you know, asking for however much we end up asking for, 7 or. Yeah.
How do we square? I mean, what I would offer is right now we have over $700,000 in accounts payable that is not being paid. I'm paying it as it's due, but our CDA bills, we've got bills. So we could wipe out that entire balance probably, or not all of it, but
Yeah.
it's mostly that so that we owe, but I've been and well, and property taxes, which will be coming up for the next installment, but.
In my view, Carl, is like, I actually think there could come a time where we would decide that we should use some of that instead of ask for a bigger rate increase. I think it's not till we start catching up on this lag effect on cash like she's talking about. So I don't think it's the first one. It may or may not be the second one, but in that second to third one range, when we kind of know where the end is. And now we're looking at, so how are we really doing with cash? And once the various rate increases are actually in a full year, so that we're seeing how much they really generate. And we can have a reasoned understanding of if we need sort of that's a financial backstop. That'd be the time to say, well, rather than do the last one at 5, let's go in at 3 and use some of that money, right? I'm making up numbers, right?
Yeah.
But to me, that's how I'm thinking about it, but.
I'm asking about it more not from the Public Service Commission, but more from, okay, this
Yeah.
is in our support forum, and how do we, you know, it's hard for me to understand. Probably
Absolutely.
hard for a lot of people out there to understand, so, you know. Yeah, from that perspective.
I mean, I think the fact that we are using our dividend income, that alone is good, and we're not setting that aside.
Yeah.
But if we think about the fact of where this fund was prior to even like our 2010, you know, it hasn't grown and it hasn't dropped. I mean, it has grown and then it's dropped back down.
Mm.
So, and the fact that we still need that rate, because at one point it was restricted specifically for capital improvements.
Well, I think I remember being at that meeting where, when they voted to sell it, the fund could only be used for certain things. I don't remember all the details.
But, you know, that's Scott and I have been talking about the restriction of this. I mean, this
It was
is
a village
restricted.
a village voted restriction,
No,
or is it?
I believe it's
It's
just a
a
trustee, just a trustee
I
restriction.
think that the village voted on it, was the village vote binding, I don't know. But I remember
I've always been told
proposal.
it's only been done by the trustees.
Mhm.
Alright.
And or, yeah, that's a good question.
We'll have to-
Otherwise, we owe another 1.5 million back into that fund, but.
I can visualize a woman making the proposal.
Okay.
She lives on High Street. I think pretty sure she's still alive.
Mary West.
To your point, Carl, to me, when we start heading down the path of talking to the public about this is not how I'm gonna talk to them. The list of drivers that was in the memo I sent to you all in the packet, and that will have to be refined, but it's what are the things that are really forcing this, you know, the state policies, you know, the cost of power supply, things that people can get their arms around, and may not be happy about it, and then I would couple that with, and how you doing against your neighbors in Vermont, right? Which is not too bad. Not to say, hey, you should be happy we're increasing rates, but when you know, here's what's driving it, the real costs, they're not much in our control. Depending on how we've gone through this, if you told us to find 50,000 to cut, sure, we can find 50,000 to cut. Not 1% in our view, but we would do it. But there's so much of this that we have no control over, like that 350,000, which is the biggest number. It is what it is, we're gonna have to pay for power supply, right? And it's that combination of key budget drivers and how you're doing against your neighbors, is the way I would talk about this. To try to make it simple, to your point, yeah, so people can understand it.
When I've been asked, I said, you know, we didn't have a rate increase for 10 years, that's what's driving this.
Well, more than
That's
that,
part of
actually,
That is definitely.
13,
Yep,
but yeah,
13, okay, well,
it was been since 2010, so we,
yep, that's part of it, that's why we're fifth lowest, Bob,
yeah,
right?
so, I mean, I've never had anybody question me on that.
I mean, that's what Scott and I were also talking about. If we look at even having to do 20% more and we did 5, that's 25%. And if you're talking 25,
At 15 years by then,
15,
not even 2%.
it's not even 2% a year.
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
So, yeah, there's all of that, and it still won't make it easy for people, I understand that. So.
Okay,
Anyway,
yeah.
So
so give us your thoughts on any, if you,
that's what we're looking for.
like, you have any major heartburn on whether it's even the capital spending or, I mean, it's all stuff again that.
And the plan is, whether tonight or in the interim, if there's things you wanna talk about, let us know. The plan is before your next meeting, at least, you'll get a full budget package with explanation, all the details in advance like normal. And then you'll decide if you're ready or not at that meeting, and there'll be approval when they're approved. But you'll actually have everything well in advance, so. The one other arrow that we have in our quiver, just so you know, there's full light of day. I don't know that it's something we ever wanna do. But, and Penny and I have talked about this, there'll come a time whether we decide to refinance some of our current debt in the electric, or because we're doing some other improvements and, but you know, we certainly will appreciate that you can we can capitalize all the money that's been put into this permitting effort for these FERC permits. So you've paid cash for that, when during that 10-year period where power supply got so cheap, and that's partly how we got through those 13 years, you didn't actually ask any ratepayers for any money for all that permitting, to the tune of $1.8 million. So that could be capitalized over, say, 20 years. I don't know what the depreciation
It'll be
schedule
third,
is.
it'll be third.
Whatever it would be, we could basically recreate the $1.8 million. And again, I, even though it is a legitimate capital expense and it's a legitimate asset expense, I struggle because it's people thinking it's not a physical asset in the ground. So I struggle to want to ask you to do that. But just so you know, if we really get pinched and you're like, how the hell are you gonna get us out of this? Like there's a genie in that bottle that is legal, legitimate, nothing shady at all about it. I just have a little heartburn about it. And if things kept being difficult from the state and we needed to figure out a way, there's $1.8 million sitting there that we could legitimately turn into debt service. So we'd have debt service for that period, but you'd have cash up front. Just so you know that.
Is that something you wanna wait till we need to
We
do?
definitely don't wanna do that. I don't wanna do it
No.
yet.
And it's not an asset.
Cause that's not a.
Yeah, that won't be an asset till we have the permits, I think is what we determined. So
It wouldn't be an asset, we could borrow against it, but it would just be
it'd be straight
a
borrowing.
higher interest rate.
Right.
Throughout what we were told.
But we're not proposing that now. I just wanted you to know that, so there's the $1 million sitting in the Green River Fund. There's another arrow in the quiver, and they'll wanna hide it from you. As I said, I've got some heartburn about it, but if we really got pushed right to the wall, we can make $1.8 million appear.
It's good to know.
So, light of day and all that.
We hope, I think.
We think, yes. We haven't done all the research on it yet, but we believe that's a true statement. So give that some thought, let us know if you have thoughts, comments, heartburn, whatever. So,
And we didn't have any recommended changes on the sewer budget,
No,
so.
no.
So, as Scott said, we'll present that to you again. For the next meeting.
All right, is there any other questions? Nope. All right, we'll move on to other business before the meeting, if there is any.
At some point, we're gonna have to do the year-end. Village meeting stuff.
Yeah, I should put that on this agenda. We'll certainly have it on the 17th, so we'll have to start getting things before you for annual meeting in April. So that'll start happening probably at the next meeting.
Report dedication.
Yeah, well, I think, I gotta talk to our management team one more time. I think we know who will recommend for the dedication this year, but that's obviously your call. And I gotta get David in that case to start working on all the storytelling. So,
Okay.
Oh, we Bob's plaque too.
next meeting, Bill and the sons of Bob Page will be here right at 5:30. So you guys to pull a sheet off the back, it'll be on the other side of that wall. Just so you know, so, that's the proposal, so. And we'll have Kevin here with his camera, so we can get some pretty pictures of y'all doing that. That's planned to happen at the next meeting.
Any need to go into executive session?
Not for me.
All right, all in favor, Ending the meeting at 7 o'clock, say aye.
Hi.
Let's have it. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Travis.
You
Thanks,
guys.
Brad.
Thank you.
Ha-
Have a great
Happy
night.
New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.